Hi guys, I'm Rochelle and I'm a Ravenclaw, and today I'm going to be doing the TBR Book Tag. This tag was originally created from Rachel at A Perfection Called Books and Dana from Dana Square. Both of these are blogs, so I will link them in the description box down below if you're interested in checking out either of those blogs. I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently to everyone else. Every year I create a TBR of all the books that I would like to have completed before that year is over. This is the halfway point in the year currently when I am filming this, and I am going to be doing this tag with books that I have left on that yearly TBR. So all of these books that you will see are books that I want to finish by the end of the year. So we'll jump straight in. Question number 1 is, how do you keep track of your TBR pile? Most effectively, I use Goodreads, but that also requires me to log the books that I buy accurately, and I'm not fantastic at doing that. Like, I'll do a haul and then I'll be like, okay, I can add these books to my Goodreads now, and then I just don't do it. But having said that, I do have a journal type thing that I keep where I write down all of the books that I want to read in a month. I write down all of the books that I've read in a month, and I also write down all of the books that I have bought or received physical copies of in the month. And I am much better about keeping that up. So you could say a mix of Goodreads and my own personal journal. Is your TBR mostly print or ebook? Personally, I don't really count a lot of ebooks as part of my TBR. I am subscribed to a bunch of mailing lists that message me when there are certain books free, etc. So I've got a lot of books on that I'm just like, I'll get to those when I don't have anything else to be reading, and realistically I may never read those, and I very quickly forget what is in the ebooks unless it's also a book that I have on my shelf. So personally, I count my TBR as print books. I have a separate shelf on Goodreads for to be read books, all of the books that I own and haven't read yet. I've got another shelf that is to be read books that I don't own, and though that shelf is for books that I absolutely want to read. And then I've got another shelf on Goodreads called On My Radar, and those are books that I'm interested in but don't own a copy of, and I will periodically go through all 3 of those shelves and just like remove books that I'm no longer interested in. Question number 3, how do you determine what book to read next from your TBR? I have a very involved process for determining what book I next read. Like, a lot of people just go to their shelves and like look at their books and be like, this is what I feel like. First of all, I have that yearly TBR. I prioritize those books over books that are just sitting on my shelf. And then within that yearly TBR, if I've got like a trilogy or whatever, unless I'm planning to binge read that series, I'll break those series up into... at the moment I've got a 6-book series, and I'm reading one of those books every 2 months to make sure that I finish the whole series by the end of the year, but without like getting to the end of the year and realizing, oh my god, I have to read 3 of these books right now and they're all huge. So my TBR is very involved. I go through it. My TBR videos of what I tell you guys every month what I am reading generally consist of 2 audiobooks that I have, 2 ebooks that I have, and 2 physical books that I have. A lot of those ebooks and audiobooks are books that I own print copies of, but I am borrowing them out from the library for the purpose of being able to say, I've read this series, it's on my shelf, I've read it, I don't have to worry about it. So I prioritize those books on the yearly read list. I will go through and be like, I really need, a lighter book, or a book from this particular genre is what I am feeling, and I will go through and I will figure out what books I have based on that, and then I will read those books. So I have some flexibility, but I do tend to prioritize the books that are already on that yearly TBR so that I can get them off my shelf. Question 4, a book that's been on your TBR the longest. And now again, I've said that I'm doing this tag with all books that I want to have read by the end of the year. And that book is Jill Kismet, The Complete Series by Lilith St. Croix. I got this as a Christmas present in 2014 from my younger sister. This is a enormous book. There's 6 books in this series, and this is an omnibus of them all. There's over 1,300 pages in this book, so you could say that I am very intimidated by this. Also, when I read omnibuses, I don't stop at one book. I have to finish the whole thing. So this has been on my shelf for a while for this reason. Question 5, a book you recently added to your TBR. The Red Knight by Miles Cameron. Another goal that I set for myself this year is that I've got a lot of first books in series that I want to read so that I can figure out if I'm going to continue picking that series up or not. This is a first book in a series that I recently purchased because I have heard very, very good things from a number of booktubers that I watch that seem to enjoy the same things as me. The next question is a book in your TBR strictly for its cover. Now, I generally don't put books in my TBR just because of the cover. Like, I will become interested in a book, but I will read the synopsis, and if the synopsis doesn't sound like my thing, then even if it has a beautiful cover, I won't read it. I'm not a huge cover buy person. But my answer for this question was A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This cover definitely drew me in. I am annoyed that there is a sticker that's not a sticker on my copy. I saw this cover and was like, I have to know what that's about. I have to. And then I read the synopsis and heard everyone else's reviews, and I'm so excited to read this book. The next question is a book on your TBR that you never plan on reading. And because I'm doing this out of my yearly TBR, like, I'm clearly planning to read all of the books on this TBR. But I am currently working my way through my shelves and unhauling some things because I am no longer interested in reading them, or they take up a lot of space, or again, I have e-copies of them if I am interested in them again. So I will be doing a fairly extensive unhaul very shortly, but I know that the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child will be on that. I got that from my partner's mother. She was getting rid of them, and at the time I was like, I could go with some thriller or some like mystery books right now. Like, that's kind of what I'm feeling. And I read the first one and I wasn't like drawn into it. I kind of just read it to read. You'll definitely be seeing those books in an upcoming unhaul. Other than that, I don't want to spoil you guys. The next question is an unpublished book on your TBR that you're excited for. If you guys have watched my mid-year book freakout tag, then you will already know that I am very excited for Artemis by Andy Weir, Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archive series. I am excited for the new illustrated edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is coming out in October. I've got quite a few long-running series that I own that have new books coming out, at the end of the year. So yeah, I've got quite a few books on my TBR that aren't published yet, but I'm very excited to get to them. Also, The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman, which is a book set in the same world as his Dark Materials series, so very excited for that. So I've got quite a few unpublished books that I would love to get my greedy little hands on. A book on your TBR that basically everyone's read but you. That's Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. I am not a huge contemporary person. I don't read a lot of contemporaries. I don't gravitate toward contemporaries. I don't pay a lot of attention to contemporary news. But I have heard fabulous things about this, and I think it's probably, for me, just going to be a bit of a popcorn read. Maybe something that I'll read when, you know, I can't make up my mind, or I'm having trouble focusing on a particular book, etc. But yeah, I see this everywhere and I didn't know it existed until I joined BookTube. So, finally gonna get around to this at some point this year. The next question is a book on your TBR that everyone recommends to you, and that's Promise of Blood, which is the first book in the Powder Mage trilogy. My younger sister recently read this and binge read the entire trilogy, so I have a lot of people recommending this to me. A lot of people, when I say I enjoy fantasy, immediately are like, have you read this yet? And I'm like, no, fantasy is a big genre. There's lots of things that I've read that you probably haven't read. So yeah, everyone recommends this to me, and I'm going to read at least the first book before the end of the year. And the second to last question is a book on your TBR that you are dying to read. And that is Trader's Blade by Sebastian de Castell. I have been eyeing this book on my shelf for like the last 2 months, being like, I really want to read that, I really want to read that, I really want to read that. But because of how I space out my series over the course of the year, I haven't got to this yet. But it is on my TBR for July, so you can bet your bottom dollar that, yes, that is an Annie reference, you can bet that I will absolutely be picking this up first thing in July. I am so excited to read this because I have been reading books with a lot of really heavy topics recently, and I am super duper ready for something lighthearted and funny. And the final question for this tag is, how many books are on your TBR shelf? A lot. There's a lot of books on my TBR shelf, and it's only gonna get worse. I think Goodreads currently tells me that I have about 170 books that I own physically that I haven't read yet. Again, this number is going to change very drastically shortly. I have a bunch of books that I haven't added to Goodreads yet that I bought last month, and I have the most ridiculous book haul coming up. I went to something called Lifeline Book Fest, which is an event in Australia that's run twice a year. And this year, foolishly, I went with no supervision. And I had worked really hard in the weeks leading up to Bookfest. I'd taken a bunch of extra shifts at work. And so I really didn't temper myself quite as much as I maybe should have. So I hope you guys are ready for that, because that's probably going to go up to 200, maybe 210 books after I have unhauled a bunch of books, and yeah. So that's going to be a series of book hauls that you guys can look forward to. I am definitely on a book buying ban until at least my birthday in October, potentially till Christmas. and I am gonna have so many books to read. At least I'll never have to worry about not having anything. Alright guys, so that is my TBR book tag. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you have a magical day. Bye!